Hey there, Happy New Year, Happy New You. I'm Connie Fuchsa with Foot Title Group. How's everybody doing today? So we started out Coffee with Connie this week for the new year 2017 with a word going forward for 2017. And as I said on Tuesday, my word is execute. And that means to me that we're going to execute on every goal that we set for ourselves this year. You know, you can't complete your goals, you can't be successful with your goals if you don't follow through. So I know we all, make all of these resolutions, we make all of these plans for the new year, but what do you do to execute on them? You might say, oh, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to eat differently, I'm going to work on losing weight, and we may do it for a month or two, but how long is our follow through? So my word for this year is execute, and my resolutions don't have anything to do with all of those personal goals, because my personal goals have a tendency to interact with or intersect with my business goals, because of those things that drive us. And so for me, a lot of my goals with respect to executing are personally and professionally intertwined. So for me, that we have so many new things coming out for 2017, both a project that I'm working on outside of Foot Title Group and many projects we're working on in Foot Title Group. And I'm so excited to share all of that with you. And with my word execute, I not only have to put together what those plans are, but we need to make sure that they come together. So by the end of the year, I really hope that my word execute actually resonates to the point that I can look back and say all of the plans that we made for this year, for 2017, actually came through and actually were launched, because as far as I'm concerned, execute means not only doing those things, but following through and seeing them to the end. No matter what comes along, no matter what happens, making sure that those things are achieved. So that's my word for 2017, and I'd love to know what yours is. So if you drop me a note in the messages, in the comments, I'd love to hear what your word is. I got a few on Tuesday that I'm really excited about, to follow those people and follow how their progress is with their words, and I'm looking forward to yours as well. So share with me so we can see what that is. Whether it's, your goal is buying a new home, or it's buying a new car, or it's getting yourself enrolled in college, or it's getting an A in your AP history class, or it is losing some weight, or going to the gym, or making yourself a better person, more positive, whatever that happens to be. Pick the word out that'll push you to do that, and let me know what that is. I'm really looking forward to talking to you and hearing more about that. Hey Guy, how are you today? Thanks for tuning in. So on to the items that we were going to talk about. I ask you guys to tell me when you have questions, you run across problems, you just don't understand something, because those things help me know what is best to share with you, because then I understand what kind of things you're looking for, not just information that I've come across. And with that, I had 2 opportunities this week dealing with people that we are doing closings for, or people that we're not doing closings for, that have reached out to me and asked some questions that sort of intersect this whole conversation about pitfalls with home ownership. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit in our messages and on our social media graphics. The theme right now is actually a glossary of terms, and there's a lot of different terms that are popping up. So if any of those spur questions, please ask questions to me. Private message me, email, call me, whatever that case may be, and I'll talk about that some more. But I really like to talk about things that come up both in our day-to-day operations and in things people ask me questions about. So that's what how we got to the topic for today. Pitfalls with protecting your home ownership. So I wanted to make sure that we're talking about a couple of things that have come up. So first, let me start by saying I want you to understand the important role that a title company plays in your closing and why that matters. So you work really hard to find the right home. You do some research and find the realtor that best works with your personality and your interests and your needs. You work really hard to, and if you're not, you should, to research and find the right mortgage professional, because that person's going to get all of your financial information, and you want to make sure it's somebody that you trust, that has a good reputation, has been in doing their industry for a long time, so that they can bring the best loan programs to the table for you. But the third and very important also aspect of your home, buying a new home or a piece of property, is the title company and the closing. And the reason for that is because not only does the title company do the things that you see, which is coordinate everybody, bring all the pieces of the puzzle together, get all of the documents in the right place, so when you're ready to close, everything's there for you, also getting all the money out and to the right places before and after closing. But the other thing that's very, very important is the title company protects your home ownership. And the way that they do that is they do a title search. They actually search the land records in the local jurisdiction courthouse for that piece of property that you're purchasing, and they research all of that information, and they make sure that all of the steps through that ownership chain, through as long as that property has existed, has that all the steps have been taken properly, that all of the owners were properly signed off on, that all of the mortgages or liens or any financial encumbrances on that property have been resolved and removed, that the person selling the property is the person that owns that property and that they have the legal right to do that. Also, that the documents have been worded in such a way in the previous ownership chains that you can make sure that you're protected. So not only is a title search done, but the title company actually reviews all those documents to make sure everything is in order so that they can ensure your ownership. So I say that because you think, gosh, well, this property's been through 3 or 4 owners. Maybe, obviously somebody else did their job right and everything's done in the right way. And, I shouldn't have to worry about any of that. And so the title company, it doesn't really matter who I work with because, the previous owners did it, the previous title companies did it the right way. And so it would really only be if anything's going on right now. And that's totally, absolutely not true. Just like in any other situation, you want to make sure that the company that's protecting you has done all of the legwork and make sure everything in the previous chain is correct, including the seller that's selling it to you right now. And I bring this up because a couple things have come up with us recently that definitely would cause a problem with us being able to ensure someone's ownership. So first of all, let's talk about, I'm going to give you 2 instances that are a little quirky. One, I actually had a friend contact me about a piece of property that they're purchasing, and the seller is a LLC company, and or a partnership or a corporation. This would be the same situation for any of those kind of entities. But the seller is actually a company, and the company is not in good standing in the state of Maryland. In this case, it's in the state of Maryland, but that would be true in any other state as well. So the company's not in good standing. Well, the title company handling the closing has said, I'm not going to be able to do that closing for you because that seller does not have the ability to sell that property. So this person who contacted me said, well, what does that mean? They're saying they're not going to be able to insure the ownership. So should I be worried about that? What should I do? Well, let me tell you that when someone says that they cannot protect your ownership, you should run. You definitely don't want to find a way around that. You want to make the seller follow through with what they should be doing to make sure that your ownership is protected. And here's why. So in this scenario, if a seller who's a company sells this piece of property and they're not in good standing, they don't legally have the right to sell that property. So you've got somebody who sold an interest in a piece of property who didn't have the ownership ability to be able to do that. So now you've bought a piece of property and you decided, I'm not going to take the insurance which would protect me, and now you've got somebody else who might have had an ownership interest in that company come back to you later and say, hey, I had an interest in that company and they didn't have the right to sell that. This is why it wasn't in good standing. And so now you've got to defend your interest. Will they be able to take the property from you? Maybe not. But you have to legally defend your interest, and now you've got to hire an attorney, and you've got to go through the court process, and you probably are going to have to go through a civil trial to get that resolved. Do you want to spend all of that money to protect your ownership? No. When somebody says to you they can't protect your ownership, they're not going to be able to insure it because there's a problem, that should be the hugest red flag there is. The other instance we had was that we had a situation where a seller was selling a piece of property, and this is going to get a little tricky, but I'm going to simplify it for you when I first tell you what the situation is. So we have a seller who's selling a piece of property, and the seller had what's called a life estate, meaning that the owner of the property, typically it's when you have an elderly couple or person, and they want to do some estate planning, and so they want to deed the property to a child or someone else, and they hold what they call a life estate in that property, which means they can live in that property for as long as they're alive, and when they pass away, then the person who owns that property, then and only then can they sell that property. If they want to sell it beforehand, they have to have that person that has a life estate sign off on it. So that's kind of a complicated situation, and we can talk about that more in a later point, or if you have questions, reach out to me and we'll talk about that. But in this particular scenario, the information in that deed that gave the person the life estate wasn't clear. And so because it's not clear, it puts us in a situation where we were requiring the sellers to open an estate because the life estate person had passed, and it wasn't very clear how that was going to work. And this is the step that needs to happen in order for us to be able to ensure this ownership. So the buyer says, well, you know, it's not really a big deal. And the attorney for the estate says, well, you know, we do this all the time, and the wording isn't right, but, you know, it'll be fine. Well, it won't be fine if someone has an interest in that estate from that person that passed away, and they realize, which they will at some point, and they come back and say, hey, I had an ownership interest. I should have got some money from that when that property was sold. Now you own that property, and you chose not to get insurance because you wanted to just hurry up and get it closed, and everybody was talking in your ear and saying, oh no, this, you know, we could do it this way, we can get around it this way. Now you're not protected, and it will come back to haunt you, and unfortunately then you've got to protect your interest, whether it is you have to hire an attorney to defend that ownership interest, or, you know, the person that has that ownership interest from that estate situation, they want money, so now you've got to go in and defend that as well. So the other part of the puzzle that a title company does is they provide you title insurance. And title insurance ensures you that no one can come back and make a claim against your property. And if they do, the title insurance company will defend you. They'll pay the attorney's fees, and they have their own attorneys that take care of these kind of things in a very specific area, and they are very well versed in taking care of these kind of problems. And they will take care of the problem for you up to the policy amount. There's no deductible, there's nothing you have to worry about. You really drop it in the lap of the insurance company and say, here you go, take care of it. But, you know, when you're getting ready to go to closing and some of these things come up and the title company you're working with says, hey, I can't insure that, this needs to be fixed first. Don't try to figure out how to go around it and let people talk in your ear and say, oh, well, you know, we've closed these kind of things before and it's totally fine, there's no problem, because that title company that you took the time to research and make sure that you're dealing with somebody that is reputable, that is looking out for your interest and is going to explain to you, we are going to insure your ownership interest, and then they say, I can't insure this unless this happens, you have to trust them to do what they're going to do. Because imagine someone coming back and saying, I have an ownership interest in that property, and you got to get out. You have to defend yourself. What are you going to do now? Who are you going to call? The closing is over. You listen to someone else and let someone else tell you what to do, and now you own the most expensive thing you'll probably ever own in your life. You've decorated it. You've got your rooms set up for your kids. Good morning, Pam. Hey, Nancy, how are you? Hey, Kathy. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. Good morning, girly. So now you have the most expensive thing you're probably ever going to purchase in your life. You've decorated it, you set up your kids' rooms, everything's adorable, and 6 months later, you've got somebody who comes back that was a relative of the seller who says, I own an interest at least, and I'm due some money on that sale, and you chose not to get the insurance because you let someone talk in your ear and say, oh, that's not really a big deal, that shouldn't happen, you know, we do this all the time. These are the kind of pitfalls you can fall into because you're sitting there listening to someone talk to you, and instead of using your best judgment and saying, this is the most expensive thing I'm going to do in my life, I have trusted myself and done my research to find a realtor that I trust, that works with me, that I found a mortgage professional that I trust, that I can work with, and I've taken the time to find a title company that I trust and that's going to protect my home ownership. Don't let someone else talk you out of what you can do. And remember, at the end of the day, the buyer has the right to choose who does the closing. So it's your right and it's your responsibility to do your research and make sure you're working with somebody that you trust and that will protect your home ownership. So those are my pieces for today. There's all kinds of pitfalls that could happen, but the biggest one is when something comes up and you've taken the time to research who you're going to work with, don't let someone else talk you out of it. Don't let someone else talk you out of it, or also don't let someone else talk you out of getting the insurance to protect you or doing something different than what the professional that you're working with tells you. If someone says they can't insure your home ownership, there's a problem. And you don't want to be sitting there with all of your money and all of this expense out there and you can't make sure that you're protected. It's a huge investment. Make sure that you're protected. Let's talk about one other thing real quick. With the new year, we have all kinds of things coming up. Hopefully I've given you a tidbit on title companies and the piece they bring to the table and why that insurance is so important and why you should trust the research that you did. We want to make sure that you have as much information and as many resources as possible all the time. So when you're purchasing a piece of property, a new home, you're selling something, or you're the real estate or lender, the real estate agent or the lender, excuse me, we have all kinds of resources, and we just launched our highly anticipated new website that is so much easier to find things. There's a tab for buyers, there's a tab for sellers, there's a tab for realtors and lenders, and under those tabs are all kinds of things. There's links to all kinds of licensing sites, there's links to county recording information. There's links to all kinds of stuff. In Maryland, there's the withholding tax information. In Virginia, there's all kinds of links to the different counties because they're all very different. There's all kinds of resources on there for you. Helpful links is one page. Resources is where we have the buyer's guide, the seller's guide, the planning your move checklist. So if you're moving, that's a cool resource for you. If you're buying something, there's a real estate flow chart for you to sort of see how the process goes. There's a sample closing documents book. So if you're going to be going to closing is a great experience, but it's an awful lot going on in a little bit of time. And you can go on there and download those sample closing docs, which will give you about 50 of the most common documents we see at closing. They're not going to be exactly what you sign, but they're going to be really darn close. So pull that resource off. There's also a calculator on there that's on several pages, but it's on the right-hand side. It's as you roll down, that will allow you to go in and calculate closing costs. You have to sign up. There's no email spam. There's nothing coming on from that, but it allows you to save, put in an estimate and go back in and save it. And the title calculator is just an awesome tool that you really need to go in and use. We have several new things launching this year, so please keep your eye peeled. Every month we have something, either an event or a new resource that's going to be launching that'll help you out. And right now I want you to go in and check out the new website, though, because we just launched that Execute at 4 o'clock on December 30th. I had to have it done by the end of the year, and that's when it launched. So that was our first Execute of the new year, which we're really excited about. So stay tuned. Every month we've got something going on, and as some of you may know, Coffee with Connie runs Tuesdays and Thursdays between 8 and 9. I try to put a little blurb out there now that tells you what time we're going to be going on, since that's a big window. If you like the information we're giving you, please share it with people you know. There's so many people out there that I can't reach that hopefully that they might find some value in. And if you have a topic or something you don't understand, please reach out to me and let me know what that is. I'd love to help you. Like I said, there's lots of things I can talk about that I know, but I like talking about things that you have questions about, because if you have a question, more than likely someone else will as well. And lastly, excuse me, please click the follow button. That way you make sure that you never miss an episode that we're talking about. So I hope you guys are having an awesome day. A huge shout out for the beginning of the year. 2017 for us is going to be our most successful year yet, and we are all about Execute this year. So hopefully what we talked about today helped you out a little bit, and if there's anything I can help you with, I am always here to answer your questions. I'm Connie Fuchsa with Foot Title Group, where we protect your home ownership. Have a happy Thursday, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.